The Bite Me podcast is coming right up, and it is brought to you every week right here on YouTube by Freedom Boats. It is the best shallow running boat on the water, and there is a model perfect for you. The Chiquita 14, the Eagle 16, the Patriot 18, the Commander 21, the beautiful Warrior like I have 23, or the big boy that runs so shallow, the General 26. Chet Moore and Pooty can customize it however you'd like, and there's a dealer near you, whether it's the Boatyard in Kemah or dealerships in San Antonio, Beaumont, Corpus Christi, Port O'Connor, Houston, and Aransas Pass. Freedom Boats or freedomboatsusa.com. All right, welcome in my favorite hour of the week. That's no lie, man. Every week I'm looking forward to Tuesday, 3:30 p.m. We'll post it at 6 p.m. The Bite Me podcast. Welcome into it. Always have a lot of fun with these fellas. Caleb is finishing up a trip, coming back from a trip, so he may or may not join us, but that's Captain Scott Knoll, who I believe you said, of course he is, when I mentioned to you that he's coming back from a trip. And that's Captain Dean Thomas with a beer in his hand, which is, if you ever want to see a sure sign that there is progress being made on his, after his back surgery. Not only is it a beer in his hand, he's got the John Lopez fully dressed bottle of beer, which is.
And I have accessories.
And the lime. Well, I said fully dressed. It ain't dressed unless you got the salt and the lime.
That's like a party over here, man.
It's a party of one, party of three, party of thousands here on the Bite Me podcast. Really appreciate you guys joining us. My rundown here is the cup runneth over, so to speak. So we're going to get right to it. That interview that I promised with JT, which was really cool. And I'm going to actually follow up with these fellas on the little things you forget that can end up being very expensive. I know they've got some stories. But man, not only has Captain Dean walked on the beach, walked on the jetties, drinking a beer. Let's start right there. Everybody's been curious about your progress, but of course, before that, everybody, if you first time listening to us or forget to do it, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Start at Podbean. Podbean is where we host it. You can see all the episodes we've ever done. 5 years now that this thing has been blowing and going, and of course, join the Bite Me group page. And you can watch us live here on YouTube every Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. or download it. It's going to be uploaded about 6 p.m. every Tuesday. So you're looking a little frisky there, Dean, a little friskier than I've seen you in a while.
Man, it feels good to feel good. I'm not the most patient person in the world. And the last 6 weeks have been a test of human endurance for me, man.
Human endurance.
But all that being said, man, I mean, I reached the 6-week mark. Feel good, started physical therapy, good workouts over there. And man, I feel like I've reached a plateau in this thing.
So that's good. Okay, so be honest, completely honest. You know, I always like for us to just fall on the sword, be honest. Were there moments when you're staring at the ceiling and you're in incredible pain, which you were, I can attest, Scott can attest, Caleb can attest, where you said, shouldn't have done it?
It was close. So the funny thing about it is, with leading up to this surgery, with the questions they ask you, all these questions, they just kept asking, have you had any suicidal thoughts? Have you ever thought of hurting yourself?
You mean
and I
now?
kept going,
You mean now or ever?
Before ever. They kept asking, have you had, and I was like, how does this suicidal shit play into this program? And for the first 2 weeks after surgery, I understood the pain that you're sitting there in. I understand how that might have been an option. I never got there, but it was the first 2, even 3 weeks were just, it was bad. But I mean, and they explained there's stages of this recovery. You just have to get there. And even though I'm moving around now, I still have to be very careful. Bones have to heal up. Though you can't rush the bones.
If anybody asked me if I ever had suicidal thoughts, my answer would be, well, now I do. Well, I mean, why are you asking? I mean, that's like,
no,
I mean,
that is the level of pain that comes with spine surgery. And past all of that, I mean, but never really, I always knew there was a goal. There was a light at the end of the tunnel. I always knew that I just had to endure to get to that point. I mean, Scott went through one, man. Scott's shoulder was ripped into shreds, and he probably knows as much about that. The
Scott,
long
did you ever have any suicidal thoughts?
No, no. I can tell you that the pain works on you, man. I mean, it does. It's just constant. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just going to be there, and just got to grit your teeth and get through it. That's all you can do.
There, I fixed the screen for you
There.
guys.
much better.
For those who are watching on the live YouTube stream, I must have hit the, you know how it has different ways you can show it. I must have hit that funny, and everybody was a little scared. We're looking too closely at each
Nobody wants to see us that close.
No, now we're good. All right, so but there's a lot to cover, like I said, and we'll go for a little while here, as we always do, for about an hour plus, hour and 10 or so. But I do want to get to this because, and Scott, you didn't happen to be on this little road trip that Dean and I made, but I know you know, and you've been around boat making and the advancement of boat making. Anybody wants to see the entire video, it's absolutely incredible. It's about 12 minutes, 13 minutes of your time. That's worth it. It's on my YouTube channel right here. But I'm gonna start with Dean. So we got up and went over to Victoria, picked you up. It was your first real time out of Aransas Pass since, well, outside of going to the doctor.
Yeah, unless I was going to a doctor visit.
Yeah. So we went to Victoria. And we went over to Freedom Boats, where Chet was making my boat. Again, we're not going to get into all the details, but I do want to get your thoughts and Scott's thoughts. Like, I walked out of there going, man, I thought there had been advancements, but it was incredible.
Yeah. The video doesn't do justice for what we saw. It's hard to scale that down to a 13-minute video of actually seeing the process, how they put those boats together, the materials, the stages, the timing that it takes to get everything to set and become one solid chunk of boat that is absolutely bulletproof when you put it in the water.
And Scott, go ahead and then I'll ask you a question.
I got to watch them do the general. I got to watch from the start when they made the mold, how they were hand carving the plug and all that stuff. It was really cool. I kept going back over there, and Chet would look at me like, we hadn't made that much progress since you were here. I'm like, I still want to come see it.
Yeah, I don't care.
See what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, the thing I was going to ask you about, Scott, is we always talk about the incredible science and engineering involved. But I walked out of there saying, I actually feeling, I don't know if safer is the right word, but more secure in running my boat the way we run our boats, because like the down to the way they web the fiberglass on top of the decks and for extra strength. And if you get a big impact in one area of the boat, it's going to disperse that impact throughout the entire boat. And how scientifically, precise they are from the transom to the gunnel, even to everything. It's worth looking at that video, if nothing else, to understand, like, these boats are machines that can handle a lot, And
that was the most interesting part of it, the way the step-by-step process from where they make the bottom of the boat, the part that slaps into the water, with the material in there that's crisscross weave pattern, and then they put the stringers, and then the gussets from the transom tie to that, and then the transom connects to the gussets, connects to the stringers, which makes it, whenever it's a finished product, it is one solid piece. There is everything connects to everything else. So, I mean, yeah, really cool to see the engineering that goes into the toys that we play with, man. You never think about it. And then when you're outside the jetties, man, and you got 3 and 4 foot waves and you're crashing into that stuff, and this boat is rock solid, I mean, it is amazing what you can do to them.
Yeah, it gives you a whole different perspective on why they cost so much too. When you see how many guys are working on it, how much payroll is going into that boat. It's not just slapping one, pouring something into a mold and getting something right back out.
Mhm.
There's a whole lot to it, and those guys are craftsmen. Watching them work and how much care they put into it. There was a couple of the guys that were there.
And
They had
hey, man, from watching
company.
John and
I
the
know.
part
I
that
knew you.
he
I
did,
knew exactly where you were going. I knew
from
exactly.
watching John, and then watching the artistry with
I'm
the
a
real guys
craftsman. I'm a
step in.
craftsman. You saw me being a
No, you're
craftsman.
not. You're
Well,
exactly.
I saw what part they let him do, the part
Yeah,
that nobody sees.
Yes. He actually told me that, but I was like, I was putting the gel coat down, and is it Arturo? Was it Arturo Armando?
Yes, Arturo.
Arturo was standing there, and I was doing it like I was painting a chair. But you got to do
Yeah.
like a relatively thick, I think he said 30
And you-
millimeters or something like that.
Yes, and you have to lay coat over the next coat over the next coat,
Yeah.
and you were just willy nilly like.
I asked Chet flat out. I said, "How bad was it?" He didn't even hesitate. He goes, "It was bad.
That was
It
bad. It was bad.
You're not
it was-
hired.
It was bad." But the other thing, Scott, like I want our listeners, whether you're on the podcast or however you get this information, take your significant other or the person who always gets a little bit antsy. Take them to see that, or let them show them that video, because like my wife, I don't know, I mean, she's still relatively new to being out there all the time and everything. We hit a bump and she's like, she gets that little head. No, man, these boats are rock solid.
Yeah. Well, everybody gets in your boat, does that. Goes,
Hey, what happened today? What-
Caleb's absent, so it's all
it's all on y'all now.
all on John today.
It's all on y'all now.
was that a motor block?
Oh well, there was that. And I'm not gonna deny that. But that shaft got straightened out. It's clean as a whistle now. So we'll see. It's working like a champ.
Yeah, they threw the old one in the trash and put a new one in there.
They literally did. But okay, so the thing about it is, we got to get Dean out. He had some tacos. Had a little field trip. Just wanted to start there because we always talk about science and engineering, but until you see it, it's really something. So trust your boat, especially if it's built like that. And that was the entire premise of that video. We're gonna get to some other stuff, but let's get to some fishing stuff here. Meat and potatoes, and this was on the and Lindsay right here on the live YouTube stream has a great question. We'll get to that next. But this was on the rundown last week, and we didn't get to it because it's very timely. We need to get to it this week. And Dean, you were talking about this, but I want you to elaborate. People always talk about moon phases and post-frontal conditions, but this time of year it might be different, huh?
Man, I just find that the springtime is completely different than fall. I mean, summer is consistent. Summer's just hot. Wind blows same direction every day. That doesn't change. Fall, you get some fronts, that are starting to come in, and those things have a certain effect. In the springtime, and whether it is this time of year because the days are getting longer, and then in the fall, the winter, the days are getting shorter. So there's a whole nother rhythm to Mother Nature going on. Whenever I'm fishing behind the full moon, behind these fronts in the springtime, I find it to be way more challenging, way more tougher days behind the fronts when you have those beautiful bluebird days after a front comes through, you're behind the full moon. There's days you would swear there's not a fish out there on those flats. They're just tough to get them to bite, harder to find. And behind those weather events, to me, I just find those to be way more challenging than the effects that takes place during the fall. The fall has overriding factors. You get migrating schools of bait that have been in the bay all summer long, and they're on the move. They're moving out. That post-moon, post-front, I always feel like I can still go out there and with a high level of confidence that we're going to get some big fish. The springtime, March and April, very challenging. For me, and you'll see people that pursue the big trout in March, but it's not a consistent, easy game at this time of year. You deal with wind direction. tide, and those things. For me personally, I find it to be way more challenging at this time of year with those weather events that take place.
I hadn't quite put that together like that, but as you're talking, I'm like, that's right. And so, Scott, kind of the follow up to that to elaborate is why and what do you do? Because as he's talking, I'm listening. I'm like, yeah, springtime after a front and the moon phases. I mean, I guess the moon matters more, or why is this happening and why is it tougher and what do you do?
It's just transition time, and we're going from a lack of bait. The only bait around was big, and now you got ultra tiny stuff hatching out all over the place. I think the fish move a lot more in the spring. Uh, you've got water temperature variances. The deeper water and the shallower water is warming up really quick with the sunshine on it. And there's just so much more inconsistencies throughout the bay. And I think that moves the fish around a good bit, turns them on, turns them off. They slide up, they slide back down. There's no established patterns yet. I like it, towards the end of April, 1st of May, and things seem like they really get kicked off and they're more consistent. Right now, like Dean said, I mean, we're still getting these little fronts, these weird little fronts. I walked out, is it yesterday or day before I walked outside to go work? I went, whoa,
Yeah.
it's cold. Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
I think the fish kind of get that same feeling of, hey, it's warming up, everything's getting good. Oh, hell, all the water's gone and the wind's blowing. Back to winter.
Yeah. Well,
another aspect of that, I mean, I did another little field trip today, went over to Port Aransas and we did a nice walk on the jetties. It appeared to be devoid of life in that water. No mullet, no bait, no birds, water beautiful, tide ripping in. And it's just not like going out there in the fall where this just blowing up in where you look, birds diving, birds everywhere. And I mean, it's just quiet out there. I mean, and it was beautiful conditions. I mean, you could see into the water, you could see everything that was happening, but it was just no obvious life in the water. So, and like Scott said, there's a lot of little things, little bait are hatching out. And it's inconsistent is the best way to think about that. But you're certainly not going out at this time of year and finding those big mega schools of mullet on the flats that we look for the rest of the year. You find a big old school of mullet getting blown up and blasted. You drift through there and you're about to catch you a good fish in that. And that stuff is just non-existent right now.
So the question becomes, as I mentioned, Scott, and by the way, Caleb joining us now, and the question is about how moon phases and post-frontal conditions are different in the spring, talking about bait changes, etc. But so the fish are moving is one thing you said, a lot more. Scott, so what do you do? You're out on the water. Let's say you're going out. We're going to get to what was Scott doing, Caleb and Dean later. But what do you do when you're facing this type of a good day to go be out on the water, but unpredictable after a front and with the moon phase the way it is?
Just cover a lot of water and have your A, B, C, D, E, F plans, and and know that don't stick with something way too long. If you're in an area like Dean was talking about, devoid of life, move on. Even if that was your A spot and that's where you caught them last year at this time, that doesn't mean you got them this year. And maybe you can develop a pattern, by bouncing around. And if you notice that, they're all in, like somebody had posted up here, everything was eaten in less than 3 feet of water today. So you find that they're eating in 2 to 3 feet of water over grass. Now I got a bunch of places I can go. They're feeding on a drop off with a current moving across it. Now I know where I need to be. I've got several spots at the back of my mind that I can go to. You got to just stay flexible. Don't get tied into what you want to do. Do what you need to do.
Yeah. So Caleb, was everything eaten? You just got off the water. Was everything eaten in 3 foot of water or less, as Broken Coast has said, or what'd you do today?
Man, can you hear me first off?
Yes, sir.
Score. All right, cool. I brought some stuff, but I forgot all my wires. Can I change the subject and then because it ties in with what we're talking about?
Absolutely. First of all, where are you?
I'm at Adams Dock. It's so the
Okay.
fishing's so good here that I moved in.
Yeah.
That's Adams Dock. It's right there.
Are you serious?
Yep, that's Adams
Oh,
Dock.
Lord.
I'm not even screwing with you. I live here now.
Tell Adam that
figured-
I sent him two OG Sauce stickers as requested today.
Cool. I'll stick them on my new sliding glass door right here.
So what's your addition to this then?
All right. So today I figured out the disconnect between me and Scott on barometer. Okay. This morning, low pressure, redfish everywhere. They ate, and then the high pressure kicked in. I got it on the graph. Redfish quit eating, trout wouldn't eat, and we ended up on some rocks out in West Bay, sight casting rocks out there. And dude, I figured it out. Black drum do not care what the barometer is, and that's why Scott is so adamant that it doesn't affect his fishing, because the black drum will jump over anything. 30.1 didn't care. And now I understand. And so, Scott, I want to apologize to you for not understanding what it was that I was trying to get across. We're talking about trout and redfish.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that Scott's fish didn't care. Man, they ate good.
Who talked to you about redfish, man? I mean, come on. Who got you hooked on redfish?
Well,
I think I know a thing or two about
it. Go ahead.
All right, so we're talking about moon phases and everything.
Well, in the spring, you know how those conditions tend to be different in the springtime than.
Well, the point was, Caleb, that it has a bigger effect in the spring than the fall. Overriding factors in the fall and such you can get around that, but in the spring, behind the full moon, behind the front, it tends to be a little more difficult.
Well, it's more impactful. And so what I'm dealing with right now is it's just been killing me is on Thursday, I look at the forecast and we've got a heavy southeast wind Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I need more water down here. Right. And so I have to have the tides and everything to cooperate and make it happen. Well, right now we're sitting on just a little sliver crescent moon and we're on those 4 tide days. Right. And so while I'm depending on the tide to come in for springtime patterns because the shad and the glass minnows and all that are here, but I need the fish up against the grass. These 4 time days, which tie in directly with the moon phase, right, isn't letting water in every night. So we had heavy southeast winds for 3 days, and I got 4 inches of water back. In the wintertime, they're on that pattern. They're not wanting to get up, or I'm not wanting to. I mean, how do I say this? I'm wanting to fish all the little bait fish along the grass and along the stuff, and the fish can't get there. In the wintertime, it doesn't matter. I'm fishing a low tide wintertime pattern. But now the bait that's here that is going to make that thing come to fruition, this moon tide and the wind direction and all that is keeping the water down, and it's really stymieing what I'm trying to do on a springtime pattern.
Let me just say, you guys you guys killed this topic, absolutely destroyed this topic. You guys on tops of your games, so to speak. So let's keep that going, because that was an interesting topic that we've never really had before about, springtime effects, etc. But let's go somewhere else. And
the favorite part was Caleb apologizing publicly to Scott.
Did he?
I didn't realize what species of fish he was talking about. I never knew. Sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the case or not. But the other one that ties in with this a little bit, I guess, because we get rain in the springtime a lot. And this is Lindsay. And Lindsay, I apologize. I don't know if you're a man or a woman, so let us know. How does
EY is a girl and AY is a boy?
That's what I was wondering.
Is it the other way?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Depends on if their mama knew.
Maybe he's, what is it, non-binary? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so how does a heavy rainfall affect Redfish Bay? I shouldn't have said that.
Let's just glaze over that and forget
let's just move on. Moving on.
The thing about Redfish Bay is that we don't have.
Let me finish the question. Does a heavy rainfall affect Redfish Bay? I think we can expand it to other bays as well. Does the water turn brown? Do game fish leave? Should I fish for hardheads with wired double drops on a Zebco 33?
You can do that anytime, anywhere. But
Yeah. Yeah.
the thing about where I'm at here in Redfish Bay, we don't have any rivers that run into the bays. We don't have any runoff that affects us whatsoever. It's many, many miles to the Guadalupe on the other direction, and it is no rivers south of us to the Rio Grande. There's just nothing that it only catches the water that falls on the bay. We don't have big runoffs. So the bays, they don't turn fresh. It doesn't turn muddy. It doesn't have that effect. The rain has very little effect in Redfish Bay because there are no rivers. You move up the coast where the Colorado runs into Matagorda Bay, which I'm sure Caleb has a lot to say about that, has a huge effect on runoff. Galveston Bay as well. Big rivers, Trinity River runs into that. So where we're at, South Texas, not so much of an effect.
Before we get to Caleb, Scott, I'm curious. This is something I've fished Port O'Connor a lot, not recently, but back in the day I did a lot. I'm curious your answer on this because the watercolor generally is not quite what's down south, but not quite what's up north. And what are the effects there, and what are the effects of rain?
He glossed over the Guadalupe River going into
Yeah.
San Antonio Bay. That one's a big one. I mean, if we get a lot of rain up around Austin, and on the Guad, man, it can turn San Antonio Bay pretty damn fresh. Typically, most of that goes on and gets into the intercoastal. When we have those long-term floods, our intercoastal will go completely fresh all along there by Charlie's and Welder Flats and all that. The bay itself, Espiritu Santo, it's really stays pretty salty. The runoff kind of goes around it. The other end, we got the Colorado, feeds into West Matagorda Bay, which then goes out towards our jetties. And after those big rains last year, it was chocolate. I mean, absolute chocolate. I sent y'all videos of it. It was wild looking, where it was hitting the clean Gulf water. That was the biggest color changes I've ever seen in my life. So there is some effect here. What Dean's talking about, the direct rain. No, I mean, Espiritu Santos, the back lakes, you figure you've got, 3 or 4 or 5 feet of water, you get 4 inches of rain. That doesn't really make a big difference. And the fish really don't respond to it in any negative way. But the ones in San Antonio Bay, they will get run out of there. That bay can turn fresh if we get some real big rains, which looking in the forecast just now, they're looking at, my forecast is saying I'm getting 14 inches over the next 3 days.
I didn't look that closely, but Thursday, Friday, and a little bit Saturday.
Yeah, mine's starting tomorrow evening and going through Friday, and they're saying I just kind of totaled it up in my head, and it's a little over 14 inches of what they're predicting. We'll see about that. I mean, 9 inches in one day on Thursday. But, I mean, that's typical. We've been in a drought forever, been praying for rain, and boom, here it comes. It's all going to come all at once instead of, I told Camille today, I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, I'd love to have 10 inches of rain over about a month.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with Caleb because he looks like he's about to die 1,000 deaths.
Yeah, because it's going to kill river fishing. I mean, this whole river fishing thing that everybody's been doing, and that little view he's got out the back, that's going to turn chocolate brown here in a couple of days.
They're going to be trees and cows coming down that river.
It's going to be ugly.
Yeah, to be honest, the river bite really went to crap, but I bet I've said it 10 times the past 2 days that I will trade this BS tide for no rain between now and October. And I had no idea there was rain. 9 inches in a day?
Yeah,
what they're saying.
Thursday.
That's
what it says.
Every time it's almost time for red fishing. Every time.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I mean, not only do the powers to be want me to be sad, they also want me to be broke, apparently. Which is what we're going to do.
That's right. You said you had some trips opening up. Let's get there now.
So what I do is I've compiled a list of people that want to go, and I'm watching for the right conditions and shooting them a text and be like, hey, 3 days from now, 4 days now, 5 days now looks pretty good. I don't even know why Scott wants rain. He doesn't even own a damn cow.
He could have gotten one on I-45 the other day. They were running.
Nobody in here. I know my mama wants rain because we got like 6 horses.
Yeah,
It don't make sense for anybody here to want
Hey man,
rain.
everybody in South Texas wants rain because we're fixing to run out of water. If you've seen Choke Canyon and Lake
Canyon
Corpus
Lake.
Christi, they're combined like 15% capacity. All the Choke Canyon's been on the news every single day, showing how low the water is and how much it drops.
I wonder if you can see my old house.
Hey man, civilizations have collapsed due to drought. So
it's true. It's just the way that Dean says it is funny.
The best red fishing I've ever
No, you
experienced in 2017 after like a 9-month drought. It was
Yeah. By the way, I'm looking at see if I can find any landmarks behind you there, Caleb, that I can maybe pot lick.
I'll drop coordinates now. Who gives a damn?
Just send me a pin. Send me a pin where you are.
It'd be great for catfish.
Look for
I'm
the
talking about
floating
for down the road.
Look for the floating natty light can and/or body. I don't know. We'll find
and
out.
that's the fact. No, man, when that river starts running brown, you can go out there and catch catfish off that pier. When it turns green, then the trout and the black drum come back.
Yeah. By the way, I guess Adam forgave you if you're at his house.
I mean,
he may not know.
He may not know that you're there.
Where it was at
he may not know that you're even there. He's going to come home and say, "Hey, hey, what are you doing here?"
Oh, he's in the comments. Hey, Adam, you're out of ketchup.
He's like, "I'm at work."
And beer.
Oh man, we got a lot more to cover here, but I promised this, so I'm going to deliver it right now, and I'm going to ask these guys about it too. Little bitty things that you could do on your boat. That if you don't do, can be very expensive. JT was really, really good. JT Koshi from the Boat Yard. All right, so a couple of things that he talked about, frankly, that I don't do, and I'm going to start doing them, and that's why we like to have JT on here. You guys have probably done this, and maybe it's just something that I was told and have never done. He says, like a lot of us, what I do is I'll take the cowling off my motor and spray it with whether it's Bow Shield T9 or go ahead. What do you got?
If you're gonna list things that we probably do, you could probably make a pretty sweet game out of this on whether we take bets in the comments whether we actually do these things or not.
How many of us four do the following? This is what you just heard JT Koshi talk about. So you take the cowling off. A lot of us spray it with Bow Shield or Corrosion X or your favorite lubricant. He said before you do that, don't spray it with a power washer or a hose. Just run water all over your motor. He says what that does is it prevents from, down the road 6 months, 8 months, a year. If you're just constantly spraying your motor with lubricant, it becomes gunky. It becomes a gunk, and it actually makes it worse. Do y'all? How many raise or just weigh in? How many of y'all actually run water over your motor before and let it dry? By the way, before you put lubricant.
I have never.
I've never pressure washed my motor because that's bad.
No, he said don't pressure wash. He said just run water. Yeah.
Well, pressure washing is going to blast water into places that water isn't supposed to be.
Right.
And then, but I use Corrosion X on mine, and I do that pretty regularly.
I do too.
And not only under the cowling, I spray the jack plate, all of the fittings around the power steering, all of the nuts and bolts in the back, everything that's exposed to salt water gets a coat of Corrosion X regularly. And it stays beautiful. It stays like brand new if you keep that on there.
Now I'm going to start running a little water every once in a while, letting it dry, then spraying the Corrosion X.
I have never.
Yeah.
Never. No. Now we know.
See, I was under the impression that if you take the cowling off, it breaks the seal and then salt water can get in there.
And that's a fact too. On rare occasion, the only time I ever take the cowling off of mine is whenever I'm doing a service on changing the oil. You have to pull the cowling and the side cowling off to get to the oil filter. Other than that, I never cracked that seal on that thing.
No,
and I'm never. I'm not going to just totally rehash the interview that our listeners just heard, but I do want to ask you guys about this because this is another one that I've just let slip through the cracks. I knew this, but I haven't done it in years. When you're power washing your boat and washing, inside the hatches, let it dry with the hatches open. because I've always been one of those guys that, okay, we're all good, it's clean, and then a year later I'm like, where'd all that mold come from? You got to let it dry with the hatches open, and I'll raise my hand. I've fallen victim to that. You guys open your hatches?
It doesn't matter if I wash it or not. If it goes in the barn, that every hatch on it's open. Period. No questions asked. Whether I washed it or not, every hatch is open.
Well, and what I do to prevent that is they have that the Clorox cleaner in the little spray bottle. You just mist that thing with that Clorox cleaner for kitchen and bathrooms and stuff, and that will kill that mold and that mildew that grows in there.
I would bet my mortgage that Scott absolutely opens the hatches to let them dry.
Yeah, when it's inside.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the chickens get in them.
They start laying eggs.
I got more problems than chickens out here, man. I got possums and coons and stuff that want to get in the boat. But yeah,
you got little baby dogs too.
Yeah, got all kinds of stuff out here. But yeah, whenever I used to keep the skiff in my garage when I lived in Pearland, it was always, every hatch was always open. And like Dean said, hitting it with a little Clorox cleanup and spray that on there just real light and just leave it open, let it sit. Never had a problem with it. Out here, the humidity is 180% out here all the time, it seems like. So
it's actually more than 100%.
Yeah, there ain't nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It rains when it's dry.
Yeah.
And every night I got water dripping off the roof every night. And so the humidity is just ridiculous down here, and everything mildews, everything rusts, everything mildews. So
yeah,
just it's a constant battle. You gotta fight it all the time. If you leave it alone, it can get bad real quick. Like when my shoulder was messed up, man, my recovery from that on the boat was ridiculous. Because the boat had been sitting for a while, and it took a full day of cleaning to get that thing back right.
Yeah, when I sold it, I was really scrubbing a lot. But thank you to JT for that. All right, so before we get into some more pleasant topics, we do need to talk about this. We try to stay as timely and up to date on everything that's happening in the world of fishing as possible. And the way I put it in my email to you guys is we got a couple of grim reminders. Caleb, I'm going to start with you. I don't know what your relationship was. I didn't even text you about this. I actually called Pat Gardner and talked to him about it the morning it happened. But we had one fishing guide in the Matagorda area die in an automobile accident while he's on his way, apparently, you tell me, to guide a trip. And then Scott, I want to get to you on the other incident that had happened in the Port O'Connor area. But what I'm saying is we all have fun. We all love doing everything that we can, to just, have a blast out there, run our boats. We don't think oftentimes about some of the dangers out there, but I mean, there are a lot of dangers when you're a fisherman and you're out there on your boat and you're towing your boat, Caleb.
Yeah, yes. Every single stinking day. I may have encountered some dangers today, but I don't know the fellow that got killed personally. But yeah, that was a rough deal. The thing that hit me funny was his customer started looking for another guide, like immediately, like who can take us out now, and that hit me really funny.
It should. It should.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they talk about, if you're like a lawyer or attorney or accountant or whatever, if you pass away, somebody will take your job next week. Apparently being a fishing guide is much more brutal.
Well, I wouldn't want anything to do with that cat, all due respect. But that's the last thing I'd be thinking about. But yeah, apparently he was I was talking to Patrick, Pat, as you call him. And apparently he was towing his boat for a guided trip, and something happened about 4 a.m, and he had a wreck.
Rear-ended an 18-wheeler.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I'm not even sure he had the boat on him. I don't know that for sure, but I haven't seen it. A buddy of mine runs the tow service, and it was pretty bad.
Yeah,
From what the pictures that have been explained to me, I don't even want to see them.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah. And then the other one, Scott, again, we can talk about this. Maybe this is what Dean can add to the discussion about it. It's dangerous out there. It's dangerous out there. And we kind of gloss over that. It can be, I should say, it can be dangerous out there. But Scott, give us the details of what you know of what happened in Port O'Connor.
And I've heard it 2 or 3 different ways, but the gist of it is apparently somebody got run into by a boat. I got it that they were standing in shallow water trying to show them where the channel was coming out of Pringle. And it was like 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, something along those lines. And the tide had dripped, had fallen out, and they were worried they couldn't get out. So they're going to run it, and running it in the dark. And apparently the boat slid out, making one of the turns, and ran into the guy, cut his feet off. At least I've heard 1 foot, I've heard both feet, I've heard, either way, gruesome. And they got him over there to Froggies, and I've heard that they life flighted him. I heard they went by ambulance, but either way, he passed away from blood loss, apparently.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that one there, I don't even want to speculate on any other causes of it, but it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. Just wait till daylight. It'd be a whole lot safer to run out of there in the daylight. So you get stuck in Pringle Lake. There's worse places to be stuck in this world. Just wait it out, let it get daylight. If you have to, call CETO, have them come get you. People just, I don't know, panic is what gets you in trouble. And when people panic about situations, they do things that aren't always the best way to go about it. And that sounded, just from what I'm hearing, and I don't have any firsthand information on it, but from what I'm gathering, they kind of panicked that they were going to be stuck inside there, and they had to get out, and it was middle of the night. I could be totally wrong. They could have just been, night fishing and decided to leave at that point. But whatever it was, man, Pringle's a tricky place to get in and out of in the daylight. And I wouldn't want to run that little channel in the dark.
Well, the super low tide's been right at daylight, so I could see them. We got to get out of here.
Yeah,
but still, that's not good.
Well, so Dean, the thing that I wanted to kind of emphasize to our listeners, I want to ask you about, and that is, Scott touched on one part of it. Don't panic is easy to say, but it's oftentimes a lot more difficult in practice. If you are captaining the boat, especially as a professional fishing guide, and you start pushing, you start doing whatever it is you're doing outside of the boat, you better darn sure tell the person who is going to be on the helm every detail of what you want them to do and what not to do. Because I'm not speculating, but I've seen this in the past. I'm going to speculate on this incident, but I've seen it in the past. That prop, a lot of people start, running the boat as you're pushing or whatever it may be. You better be darn sure when and where and how to operate that and where to stand, etc.
Yeah. There's a level of experience that comes with that, but if you're back there behind the boat and the motor is running and the propeller is turning, there's just no worse place to be. I've seen it many times. People are running the flats, blah, man, they run up on a bar, run up on a flag, get stuck. 2 or 3 people jump out, they're pushing in the back, somebody's gunning the motor, trying to get it off the bar, and that propeller has zero mercy. It is razor sharp, and human skin and bones is no contest. Man, there's a lot to say about this. Be aware of how dangerous boating in general is. There's thousands of boats that just run around every single day and nothing happens. When it goes wrong, it goes really wrong. Too many fatal accidents occur right here on Redfish Bay, from not wearing your kill switch, from people getting ejected out of the boat, from pushing, being back there. be aware of how dangerous the boat is. And then to follow up on all of that, have a first aid kit in the boat. Have a well-stocked first aid kit that you monitor regularly, not band-aids, not stuff like that. I mean, consider a tourniquet. Take a first aid class. Learn how to use those things. CPR. When you need it, you really, really need it. And you hope you never do. And it's easy to believe that you're never going to need it, that it's always going to be the other guy that's in that position, in that situation. After this thing happened, I was actually talking to a buddy of mine. He's a PA over here at the emergency clinic and in Portland, and he sees these people come in with these accidents, with these injuries, whether it's, you know, a cut from a fillet knife, stabbed by a stingray, fall in the boat. All of those things are huge potentials. And he was the one that brought up the subject of the tourniquet. And, you know, they may have saved this dude's life if they had that in the boat and they had the skills to use them. They may have been able to stop the bleeding, get him to where he needed to be in time. But, you know, Pringle Lake is a long way from the boat ramp. It is a long way from 911 assistance. Being able to deal with that emergency situation firsthand, you can save somebody's life, but you can't come up with that at the last minute. You have to have some training in advance. You have to have the equipment in the boat to deal with it, and never take it for granted, man. It's a dangerous situation that we're in. And like even Scott said, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning, you're out there, and it is, if they haven't been in that position before, if they haven't been in that situation, they're going to deal with it in an impatient manner. And that this thing has to happen right now. Remain calm, analyze the situation, and then deal with it. So a level of experience is going to go a long way with how you handle that situation when it comes.
Go ahead, Caleb. You look like you had something you wanted to add.
No, I mean, Dean's dead right.
Well, it's not. I have a question for you.
Because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I've got drift socks in the boat. I've got things that you can get a tourniquet could be made out of. But man, running Pringle at 4 a.m. That's scary.
Yeah.
And
well,
the subject of the tourniquet, you have ropes, you have these things that can be used. It's how you use it. It's how you can actually get that thing tight enough.
And where to tie it. You know, you can go on YouTube and see where to tie these things. Yeah. Like if you hit an artery, you know, YouTube will show you like tie it here if it's on the leg, or here, if, you know, or whatever.
And it's not just a matter of wrapping it around and around.
Right.
You need something that you can stick inside that wrap and twist it to the point where you are stopping the blood flow. Yeah. And, you know, direct pressure in that situation is probably not going to be enough.
Yeah.
To stop it.
So, Caleb, what I was going to ask you is, you know, we oftentimes, you know, have some fun with you, but everywhere that you navigate, whether it's skinny water, deep water, whatever, you know it. I mean, you absolutely know. I mean, I shouldn't say 100% because I'm sure you've done some experimenting, but you kind of know what to do, you know, in certain situations. But you better darn sure know how to navigate in certain waters, and you better, you know, even better, know where you're going.
Well, I mean, yeah, I know a lot of it, but more so than that, I know how to handle the situation 99% of the time. You know, one of the things that people, I put my Sabine skiff on land, and I would have put the Haney Tower boat on land, but a tree stopped me, thankfully, on the edge of the land. But there's things whenever, like Scott said, don't panic. And the thing that one of them was with Daniel and one of them with Jimmy, and both of them were like, dude, we were screwed. And you just looked at me and like as calm as day said, hey, hold on. Because I know when to ditch it. I know when I'm toast. And the more I try to fight it, the more likely I am to hurt somebody, hurt myself, tear up more stuff. On both of those slides, whenever I was going into the bank, if I would have fought it and gunned it, or even let off of the gas or turned it more, I would have spun that boat out and risked throwing somebody out the back or something. And that's the difference. And you know, that's kind of how I read Scott when he said, don't panic.
Yeah.
I drive in 3 inches of water all the time. I don't know every bit of the 3 inches of water I drive in, but when certain things start happening, I've been there enough. I've stuck it. I've gotten out of it. I've been through the things to be like, this is the safest way to be screwed, really. And I mean, I can make jokes. After the last
and
bit of
the
conversation,
easiest
I'm probably
way
gonna for it.
to sum that up is you don't turn a bad situation into a worse situation. I mean, it's going to be bad. Yes, it sucks, but it can absolutely get worse.
Yeah.
Scott, I know you have something to offer here.
The don't panic thing it's easy to say. It's harder to do. Given my previous profession, I was in a lot of situations. So panic, it just doesn't, I don't panic on anything. Camille used to get mad at me because the girls would get hurt. They'd be needing to go to the emergency room for stitches or whatever. And I'm just like, all right, there's more people get hurt driving to the emergency room because they drive like idiots. You just made the situation that much worse. Hell, down in Belize when Jeff Herman and I and the guide got attacked by the killer bees down there was some panic going on. But I sat there and kind of analyzed things and said, well, hell, let's just work the problem. And that's all you can do. Kick back, relax for a second, take a few deep breaths. And that's one of the things that I was taught over and over and over again as a young cop was breathe, take deep breaths, and it'll slow everything down for you. It's hard to remember to do it at times, but like when I screwed my shoulder up, I was by myself on the ranch. I had to get back. It's pouring down rain. I had to get back to my truck where my phone was and everything. And the pain was incredible. And I just stopped and went back to my old training and took about 10, 15 deep breaths. And then I could think again. Then I could start putting the plan together and figuring out what I was going to do next. It's amazing what that does for you. Those big, deep breaths and just pause.
Yeah.
And the time people get in trouble is when they immediately react and freak out. That's what gets you in worse trouble.
Dean, James just gave us an example, a good example of another thing that could happen on the boat. Know who's on there and what they're taking and what their condition is.
Yeah, man. I learned a couple lessons the hard way, man. That actually happened to me twice where somebody was having a heart episode. And the worst one, the one that was the craziest to me, is we were on kayaks way back in the day. And the lady that was with me, I mean, she starts grabbing her chest and she's like breathing and like having this thing in her. I was like, whoa, man, what's going on? I didn't realize that she was a heart patient. She had one of those little necklaces that keeps the those little glycerin pills, and she goes to open that up and she looks in there and she's like, oh my God, they're wet. And I was like, drink them. That was my point. I said, can you scrape that out of there? I mean, what do you have to do to get that in your body? I mean, so yeah, they were like, they had turned to mush. However, they got wet. That was the situation. And we did get her to take those and got away from that one. I had another one on the boat, on the skiff, actually, where a lady passed out, hit the floor. And I mean, immediately we grab her, set her in the chair, and I'm heading to the closest marina that I can think of. And I had the phone in my hand. I was dialing 911 because I wanted somebody to be there when I got there. And she came to and regained, her senses. And we called off 911. We made it to the marina, got in the shade. And that was just a matter of relaxing, calming down. And, we made it to there, and without emergency assistance, both of those were okay.
The reason I was grinning on the that first one was
one
of the first ones that Dean called me. Dean called me right after that.
Yeah.
You're not gonna believe what happened today.
I was like, yeah. Here's another list of, or a question to add to your list. You know, when you're greeting your people in the morning and you're going down the list of what we're going to do today, do you have your? Is anybody a heart patient? And do you have your pills with you?
And mine with Jeff Herman was after we're being attacked by killer bees, and I'm getting stung all over the place, and he's ahead of me in the kayak, paddling like hell. And we're away from him, and I'm all stung up. And I said, "You get hit?" And he goes, "No, thank God, because I'm allergic."
Oh,
said,
wow.
I'm allergic. Like, really, really allergic? And he says, "Yeah, like I could die, kind of allergic." I said, "Well, you got an EpiPen, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I do, but it's in Houston." We were in Belize.
Yeah.
So I
That's
protected
not exactly good.
the rest of the day. I protected his ass from any bees, coming anywhere near him.
That's what you say, taking one for the team.
Yeah, in order to keep him away from him.
Yeah.
I think the heart patient thing is a rite of passage, because I picked up a guy from the dock, and as I'm pulling away, his wife comes running out and stops me, and I go back and she hands me the nitroglycerin pills. And turns out he has like major heart surgery in 2 days. And I was like, you realize that the Coast Guard chopper is the best case scenario, and that's an hour away from fishing, right? And then dude proceeds to catch a hardhead. And I told him, I said, hey, let me get that off for you. And he gave me the whole, I've been doing this my whole life. I know and he stuck himself with that hardhead. Do you have any idea how thin the blood is on somebody that's getting
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Days?
That's right.
I needed the tourniquet at that point. It looked like we butchered pigs on my boat. And it was at that point I was like, we're going back, bud.
Yeah.
Nope.
Listen, this is going to be a first, because it's going to be rainy like crazy. It's going to be windy on Sunday. What would Scott do? What would Caleb do? What would Dean do? I think most of you guys are going to throw your hands up in the air unless you have something to offer for Saturday. I don't think that it's going to be ideal conditions. Go ahead, Caleb, because it's going to be low tide, a lot of rain, some wind on Sunday, maybe a little bit of a window on Saturday. I
would join Angler U and live vicariously through us.
There you go. That's the perfect answer. And CIA Racing tells you, Dean, since we're fishing with Dean in June, I feel I should say this in advance. I've had heat stroke in the past. So, okay, bring some extra ice.
Yeah, well, bring your big hat, wear loose clothing, and hopefully there's a little breeze blowing in June.
Yeah.
This weekend goes right back to how we started the show today. The shifting weather patterns of springtime. Hopefully it does rain. It's a blessing for South Texas because we're desperate, but it's going to change the conditions for a couple of days. After this front, the weekend, it's kind of going back to the drawing board. I mean, you're going to have to just start where you don't know where you left off, and it's just it's part of the springtime game.
It could be beautiful weather this weekend. Who had any idea of this front coming through Sunday night? I woke up at 3 a.m. I was like, the hell is that? Jeremy Compton left all of his tools in the yard, and I'm like, they get rained on. He's like, the ones that didn't blow away. I was super pumped because we had these light winds on Monday after a southeast. I'm gonna go fish the south half of East Matagorda Bay. It's gonna be great. I drove out there, and apparently it had been a ripping east wind or a west wind all night long. It was absolutely terrible. Hey, I will say tonight on the webinar on Angler U, I'm the guest.
Yeah, I saw that. Jeremy.
People get shots at me.
Yeah, Jeremy's doing it, and I'm guessing to answer Ben there, Dean, the answer is yes. Call the office. Call your number to book a trip. But before we get out,
I just put the number
on the comment section.
Yeah, and it says this comment failed to post.
You've been blocked.
Hey, I type all kinds of stuff and it says failed to post. Like I've got some zingers loaded, and it's like, yeah, no, bro, we don't need
the phone number, the most important thing I ever put on there to call me, and it fails to post. It did it again. It did it
again. Here, I'll put it on there.
John can drop the F-bomb on air. However, he can't give us rated R tendencies in the comments, apparently.
You could message me, social media, Facebook, Instagram. I have an app. It's called Business Suite. It directs all of the messages to one place, or the phone number 361-385-0006.
You got to say it 3 times.
If Caleb was on the ball, he'd have hit the beep button for that. But.
Oh yeah.
Oh damn! Oh, I punched something. Shit.
I just put.
I'm not on the ball.
And it works. It works for John.
All right. So before we get out of here, though, a couple of important things. Several texters here on the live stream have mentioned. Remember that whole get rid of Texas Parks and Wildlife Department thing that we talked about last week? Well, he backed off. So big surprise there.
Yeah, he tucked tail and ran.
Big surprise on that. So don't worry about that. But it ties in with the other thing, Scott, that we definitely want to mention here. That we definitely want to mention here. Fatsworthy fundraiser dinner is May 31st. And you can get all that information. I'm guessing you're going to post something on the group page.
Yeah, I'll get it on there.
Yeah, and that's going to tie directly into the topic we had last.
Yeah, they have
week.
fundraiser dinners. It's a real similar to a CCA banquet. You ever been to one of those? A lot of auctions and raffles, and it's a good time. I went last year.
Yeah, go ahead, Caleb.
For those of you that don't watch this live, if I stick my finger in the air, John nods at me, and he expects me to put my finger down. And the look I got when I kept it up is entertaining as hell.
I am aware. That's what I put on the comments. Like, hey, Caleb's got something. I said, yes, I am aware.
No, I had something on the boat today. I had Dean's drift sock on the boat today.
Oh, the shootout.
It's a pretty cool little critter. And
it really is.
I had Ross Evans fish with me, and Ross offered to give it to me. And I said, no, absolutely not. I'm not using it until Dean sends me one in the mail. It's not.
Man, if we ever cross paths, Caleb, I still have a fishing pole sitting over. I have a fishing pole that a huge fan of the podcast, Carrie Fisher. He had us custom rods built. John has his. And Caleb and Scott still have one sitting here. I have shootouts for you, but you visit everybody else's neighborhood, but you never come and see me.
Gotcha. Well, that shootout is cool though, and it packs in this little tiny. Well, here's the fun part. I unpacked it and I was able to pack it back in that little bitty bag.
Oh yeah,
because when I took it out of the bag, I was like, it ain't going back in there.
Yeah, it's amazing, dude. It is a crazy new innovation, and anybody who needs a shootout also. Shopify shootout.com or text me, message me. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, you got the number there. By the way, we need to have a little sort of meeting of the minds here somewhere around Matagorda or something, because Caleb, you still got a bunch of OG sauce. You can feel free to give it to customers, by the way. Just tell them to buy some. But you got the rods, you got the shootouts, all that stuff. We need to do it. Don't forget the Fatsworthy fundraiser, May 31st. Get in on that. I'm trying to, depending on the schedule, and I know we have the walk that I do with Camille every year, so I might not be able to, but I'm gonna try to actually make it down there and say hello to some people. But you guys, really good show. You hit all the notes, man. You guys were on top of your games. We have some other good news for you three. Remember I told you to do your homework? You got another week. Because we didn't get to that topic, so we'll get to the homework next week. Caleb, did you do your homework? I know the answer. Don't answer that.
I did. I took notes.
I saw
and
something
everything.
about homework, and I was like, I don't know what the hell this is, but I ain't doing it.
I know. Well, there's the answer. So you
And
got
you
another
think
week.
anybody is going to remember that for 2 weeks?
Well, look at it, read it again. It's on YouTube. Or I sent it to you guys as well. All right, you guys, awesome. I see Camille. Hello, Camille. We'll get to all that information, and also something that Erin sent me that we're going to do that she's doing as well. That's a surprise. We'll get to that in the next couple of weeks. You guys have a fantastic day, fantastic week. Catch them up if you can, and we will talk to you next time.
Leave it up to a damn black drum fisherman and tell me how the barometer works.